to get round and talk to the people that were there. And I laid on some champagne, and Dean got some caterers there, and we paraded the stars of Dean's Yard, Tropics and the Brisa Breeze, and we got people up to the Gallop. So, I think lots of yards did different things, didn't they? But it's we got really good reaction from people, and one or two people maybe nibbling at ownership, and I know that's an area that Phil would like to touch upon.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've noticed I've been at the Epsom Downs Open Day in previous years. Unfortunately, I managed to book a holiday with Mrs. Boyle during the National Racehorse Week, so I wasn't available to go to my yards. But it's been very successful in the past, and my trainer on Epsom Downs, Mick Atwater, said that they had quite a lot of people through the doors there. So it's great to promote syndicates and racing clubs as well, if, as you say, that's a byproduct. And that's something that Simon and I are really passionate about, getting people involved in ownership. I know GBR, Great British Racing, runs in the paddock website, Rod, which is a great tool for people looking to join a syndicate or a racing club. Simon and I, Solario Racing and BG Racing, are both on that site. What are your views on syndication and its future importance to racing?
I think it's a really obvious opportunity for people to get involved in ownership for the first time. Not many people either are fortunate enough to come in as a full owner straight away or have the means to. And I think even some of our more famous owners in the sport have come in first by having a leg in something or a part share or whatever. So it seems to me the very obvious place to get people involved. There's also that added, I think, bonus of, that the social side of racing is so attractive, and we sometimes worry about that word social because it kind of gets a little bit mixed up with antisocial, which we know is a challenge for some race courses. But ownership and syndication is wonderfully social, and all of that anticipation before your horse runs, those meetings at the yard, the meetings when you get to the race course are, a really brilliant shared experience. So I think that the sport has a really good opportunity to get more people involved. We're working really hard to grow in the paddock. We've got, I think, currently about 140 or so registered clubs and syndicates on in the paddock, and our focus is on those commercial ones. We're not suggesting that if you and a friend have got a partnership or whatever on a horse, you need to be on it. That's a different kind of relationship. But any club or syndicate that is wanting to grow, we welcome them, and we only ask that they abide by the BHA code of conduct, which they all do as they join. And we want to produce more content, more video content, more news stories, and more opportunities to get people involved. And we don't. We don't want to favour one over another. That's not our job. Our job is to kind of create an umbrella that promotes the joy of being involved. And I think it's then up to the syndicates to find their own markets. And there are obviously very different offers out there and very different price points. But talking of opportunity, we have undertaken this year a survey of racing fans, and we thought we would survey racing fans specifically because they're the most logical first market for syndicate growth, and it appears that we think there's a market out there of circa 300,000 people who are close enough to the sport to get closer. And we've learned that in terms of price point, that for many people their budget is not much more than 1,500 quid a year that they've got to spend on syndication. But these are really good, important bits of data that we can share, because it gives clubs and syndicates material that they can use to encourage new people. But for me, it just feels the very obvious first rung on the ladder of being in a partnership or a sole owner, or then having multiple horses, the dream. It's coming in at this level.
Look, thanks for your time today, Rod. It's been really informative. I always like to round off the interview by asking our guest, what's their wish list of 3 things to improve things in racing in the UK?
Well, I think collaboration is really important. And I think things like National Racehorse Week demonstrate what racing is capable of. when it works together. And when we produce all of the figures on National Racehorse Week, they are sensational in terms of the reach and engagement that we got. And that was because the media companies were supporting it, the racing newspaper was, owners were, trainers were. It just felt like a real effort by racing's family. So I think the more we collaborate, the more we succeed. And racing sometimes gets bogged down in these rather tribal and sometimes public battles, which do us no good. I'd secondly think that I'd like the sport to just culturally be much more optimistic about our offering and what we've got. Racing is very good at navel gazing and looking at all that's wrong. And of course you should look at improvement and you should look at challenges that you might have. But this sport, it's the second most attended sport after football. It's on television, terrestrial, every single week of the year. It's got 2 digital channels. It has fantastic interaction on social media. Its social media audience, because we measure this every year, is now sort of creeping over the 30 million mark when you look at the platforms of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So I would just like the sport to kind of just be more optimistic and positive and to talk itself up.
Do you sometimes think we're a bit defensive about the sport? Is that where you're coming from on this one?
I think we are. We are defensive. I think obviously there are times we need to be when things, as I've mentioned earlier in the podcast, happen around equine welfare. But, this is a 300 plus year old sport with great heritage, iconic moments, a really rich and textured language. I've over time become less persuaded that jargon is a barrier to people. I think actually it's quite attractive. I think one of the real sort of seductive things about the sport is as you get to know it, you get to know the betting language and the racing language. And I think it's really, really interesting. And I think you don't need to hold people's hand on that journey. If they're interested, they will learn about it. So I think we've got so many assets. And then I think really importantly, I would like racing to show that it is more diverse to people of ethnicity around the UK, and it has to do that by the way it behaves and how it projects itself. I don't think anything sinister is going on this subject, incidentally. I just think for lots of people in the UK, racing doesn't look like it's for them because of the way it looks, if you like. I think racing is incredibly warm and welcoming and social and fun. You can get much closer to our sport than you can to many other sports. So I'd like racing to reach deeper into communities and to widen its fan base. And there is work beginning to take place in the area. So I would love to see that in the next 5 years we've made real headway there. But as I say, I suppose summarising all of that, those three wishes for the sport, it's I'm very optimistic about it. I think that there are other sports and businesses that would give their eye teeth to have the assets that horse racing's got.
Rod, it's lovely. I really endorse those 3 wishes, which I know Phil would as well. And I know that Phil and I love the fact of having a really positive person, a really positive guest on. So thank you for that. Your optimism and positivity really does shine through. And we'd like to wish you every success with Great British Racing, the Champion Series, and really look forward to National Racehorse Week next year. So thank you very much for your time, Rod.
Well, it's a great pleasure. Thank you both for having me on, and crucially, good luck in all that you're doing, and particularly the syndication, because if you're winning, it looks like we're winning as well. So all power to you.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks very much. Another really brilliant guest, Phil. We're really making things tough for ourselves and getting such interesting interviewees, aren't we?
We certainly are, but I'm sure we'll manage, Simon. We do seem to have a good list of people that we can call upon, which is great. Very generous industry. And the more we grow, the more we'll be able to attract these guests. So a little reminder to the listeners to follow us, tell people about us, and perhaps give us a positive review or rating. And we're also always happy to engage with our listeners through our new Twitter account. If you've got any questions you want answered, just send us a message and one of us will get back to you.
Well, that just leaves me to thank co-host Phil Boyle from BG Racing, our special guest Rod Street from Great British Racing, producer Callum Ronan from Callum Ronan Creative, and you, the listeners. The Breeders' Cup at Del Mar in California, live on terrestrial TV, is the finale to the flat season. A 2-day meeting starting on the 5th of November. Will there be fireworks from the Europeans? This is Simon Double from Solaria Racing saying goodbye.